and welcome back to Downloadable Content, our second half of Part 2 of our Final Fantasy retrospective. We're all still here. We all survived escaping Midgar on a motorcycle while slashing Shinra guards on our way out. But we're all here. We're going to move into the PlayStation 2 era. We're going to move into Final Fantasy X. No, I'm noticing how these things come in threes. We've had 3 games per console.
Yes, roughly 3.
So, we go to Final Fantasy X, which was the first entry for the PlayStation 2. Came out in 2001, July 2001 in Japan, and it came out 5 months later, December 2001 in the USA, and already there was some major changes right off the bat. For one, we have voice acting.
For better or worse.
2, we no longer have the top-down world map. This introduces a new type of battle system. From, if you remember, from 4 through 9, we had the active time battle system. This introduces something that they call the conditional turn-based battle system.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard it called that.
That's the official name for it. The CTB.
I believe it.
That's the CTB. It's called the conditional turn-based battle system because... if you recall in battles during that game, you saw who was going next in the upper right.
Yeah.
But depending on certain moves, that order was always subject to change.
Yeah, certain things let you take your turn sooner than others, and certain powerful abilities knock your turns back.
You also were affected by, if you were affected by various statuses, specifically haste and slow and stop, your character would increase or decrease or not even appear on the bar entirely. You could swap out in the middle of a fight too with the party members. That was a nice little bonus. And I believe the swap out was not only immediate, but you would not lose that spot in the battle.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that and I'm like, I don't know if that type of battle system allowed for more strategy. I mean, it certainly allowed you to take your time and think about what you were going to do, as opposed to the active time battle where you really couldn't plan because, while you're busy scrolling through menus, the enemy can attack you.
They gave you more time to kind of plot your steps out. But it also kind of... For me, it did away with a little bit of, the suspense.
It turned into, a chess game.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the ultimate chess game, I think, came with Final Fantasy Tactics, but...
I like Tactics.
That's chess with Final Fantasy characters, and it's awesome. Shut up, Brian.
I do not like my RPGs to be chess. Thank you very much. But, be that as it may...
I'm gonna name a character in Tactics after you, Brian, and then let him die.
Okay, good. Good.
It should be Ramza. He's got a ponytail and everything.
Good, you do that. The summon ability, they're now called Aeons in this game, can now be used for an entire battle instead of just one move. And each character had their own overdrive meter. Which is your form of limit break, but so could your Aeons.
Well, that kind of makes sense when you have a character like, Yuna at the forefront, who is probably the most prominent summoner I've ever seen in a Final Fantasy game. The only one who I can even think of who comes near to her is Rygia from 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, technically, FF9, Garnet was a summoner.
Yeah, 9 had Aiko and Garnet, 4 had Rydia, but those were the 3 other quote unquote summoners. Was definitely the main. I would consider it to be the alpha summoner of those 4.
Yeah. What was unique though, as I said about the Aeons having their own overdrive meter, is the fact that you could fill up their bars and then keep them in your back pocket until such a time when you really needed to unleash all hell, like for some of the boss battles.
With Seymour, for example.
Yeah, like Seymour round 3.
Yeah. I mean, the later bosses, like, compared to the later bosses where they would kill the Aeon after you summon one, like, you could summon an Aeon, get its ultimate off, and then it may die, which sucks, but at least you got in a free 10k or 20k damage because, hey, you could break the 9999 number limit finally.
Yes, so you were no longer bound by 4 integers.
Now I'm literally imagining Yuna having Bahamut literally in her back pocket just poking his head out.
Bahamut, I choose you. Well, wait, wrong game.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah, same concept.
Yeah, I mean, you could also go hunting for other Aeons in side quests, like Anima.
Yojimbo.
Yep.
I say, even though Yojimbo isn't the strongest of them, he's my favorite just because you literally have to pay him money to get him to be your summon.
The one that I like the best was the Mega Sisters, just because of the throwback.
Yeah, Mega Sisters is the definite throwback to Final Fantasy IV, even besides the fact that they are the strongest of the summoners that you can get.
Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI, they've shown up in quite a few of them.
And, one thing I seemed to notice, though, about Final Fantasy X was that we're starting to shift. I know all the Final Fantasy games are pretty linear in terms of their gameplay and their stories, but I felt that Final Fantasy X was getting a bit too linear.
Yeah.
Just a little.
I mean, the main things, I think, is that the loss of the airship, and specifically you controlling the airship on the world map, and the loss of the world map itself, you really started to notice that a lot more, the linearity of the game. Whereas previously you could kind of dawdle around on the map and fight enemies and do side quests. Now, if you want to do a side quest, you literally had to run back through all the previous zones, dealing with the random encounters along the way.
I'll say, drawing from my own experience, the difference between the old school and the new school, I'm drawing from my experience playing D&D. You have the games that you are railroaded in one direction and you have no control over where you're going. Then you have the games that are sandbox, where you can do anything and go anywhere. Most of the original Final Fantasies tended more towards the sandbox. They weren't completely there. They were still the story you had to follow, but you felt like you had more control over where you were going. The modern ones are very much railroaded. You are on these railroad tracks, and they're going to take you where they're going to take you, and you have no real control over it. And they do that to give it a better story. That's what they say. I don't think it works as well as they think it works.
Yeah.
You even had the option in older Final Fantasies where there would be side quests that wouldn't necessarily like buff your stats or give you items, but that literally just opened up new storyline. Like you would just find out a character's background or whatever, and it wasn't really necessary, but it was fun to go after those things, and it gave you a fuller experience of the game that you were in. That kind of gets removed in a game that's more linear, like 10.
Yeah, I remember hearing one of the directors of the game, I forget exactly who it was, talking about why they went this route, and they went because it's easier to make a compelling storyline when you have them on the railroad tracks than if you let them go wherever they want. Not necessarily because they won't be able to follow the storyline, but by forcing them to move along, they keep momentum going. While in a lot of the earlier games, you'll get so busy doing side quests and stuff that it'll be a long time before you get back to the main story, and then by then the emotion might not be there.
Yeah, that happened to me in Chrono Trigger. I can understand that.
Yeah. Well, but they had so many.
There's definitely a risk-reward to the open world versus railroad. Personally speaking, I say the sandbox is better just because giving a player a choice makes them feel empowered, especially specifically the illusion of power. And so, more often than not, said illusion is more important than the story itself.
I mean, you're definitely right in my mind that they need to be more so. But a true sandbox game, that's like Red Dead Redemption, or for an RPG, almost every MMO. The only thing that keeps you from going into later areas is you have to increase your levels. You kind of have to have, like, every real RPG has a railroad in some manner, because it has a main plot that you have to follow to progress the game. It's just how well you hide tracks.
Yeah.
Well put.
And, we have all of our cast of characters for this game. We have Titus.
He wasn't as bad as Squall, come on.
No, but Daddy, I have daddy issues. Oh, Daddy.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, daddy issues all over the place. Oh, he's a jock. And also...
With weird pants. I never got hit. Like, what's with the one side with the netting? I never got pants.
Okay, this is just my theory. I think the netting is actually a breathing apparatus that lets them breathe in the water. Because Waka has it, every other character that I see has that type of netting somewhere on their costume.
I guess it was just, I figured, like, it's a blitzball thing, and I'll leave it at that, but I was like, ugh. It's so ugly.
And let's see. And then, of course, the story that we find out with Titus and Yuna, and we find out, oh, he's just a dream. Yeah.
We also have the epic awesomeness of Oran.
When they said he was all a dream, I was just waiting for Freddy Krueger to pop in behind them.
But
he's not I mean, the simplest explanation is that yes, he is a dream, but if you go exploring the little nuances of it, he's actually basically the manifestation of the past.
I mean, he's pretty close to an Aeon, really, when you think about what he is.
Yeah. He is definitely very close to an Aeon. Same for Oran, because he is tied together more so through the memories of the past and the emotions associated with it than the actual.
I mean, they said at the end he's a dream of the Faith, and the Faith are where the summons come from. The summons are basically dreams of the Faith as well. So I mean, really, when you get right down to it, that's what Titus is basically just like Aeon 2.0.
Better, faster, stronger, more whinier than before.
Exactly.
Yes. We also have our unique ability system. We have the sphere grid.
That confused the hell out of me.
Initially was confusing, but I think it was pretty well done.
I really liked the sphere grid. That was probably one of my favorite leveling up systems.
I didn't mind the sphere grid, but here was my downer for the sphere grid. You spend a lot of time getting to the auto life ability, because in my brain I'm going, yes, I'm going to use the auto life ability on the final boss. Then comes the final boss.
Yep.
And you're given it by default.
I don't really count you, Yevon, as the final boss, because I mean, at that point, there's no way for you not to win. It's like the very end of the Sephiroth fight. Like, I consider the boss battle before that to be the final
So you
boss.
consider Jekt to be...
Yes.
The thing is, I got the auto life. I got the ability to get auto life after the battle with Jekt.
That sucks.
And I'm like, yes, the game's not over. I'm going to use this on the final boss. Everyone gets auto life, and then you get to you, Yevon, and I'm like, you fuck.
Yeah. Did anyone else have this happen, or did they notice this too? Where pretty early on in Titus's leveling on the sphere grid, you could actually jump into Kimari's. Did anyone do that by accident?
Yes, I actually did.
Okay.
Is that a glitch?
No, it's not a glitch. It's actually a purposeful intention, but I was making sure like someone else saw it, and I was asking if they did it because thankfully I started to go down that tree. Like I put like 1 or 2 sphere points into it, and then I started exploring it more. I was like, oh wait a minute, this is Kimari's shit. I don't want to go down that just yet.
I really wish my only complaint with the sphere grid is I wish it had been easier to get to the other characters one if you wanted to take your character in a different direction. That's actually a good example of it being done right. If every character had one close to them that they could jump over to if they wanted to, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, like I remember it being like, if you wanted to make Tidus get Black Mage spells, you had to go pretty far into like the entire sphere grid just to get to Lulu. Speaking
of Black Mage, I mean, that you bring up Lulu, who was probably one of the more awesome Black Mage characters. You know.
Yeah, she is definitely a no-nonsense woman. Also, Jiggle.
Well,
Jiggle.
Yes. I mean, obviously she is, big McLarge huge in the chest department. Combine that with a costume comprising entirely of BDSM belts. And
not to mention her win phrases are definitely BDSM themed.
I don't know why.
Waka's a lucky man.
Yeah.
Waka was so annoying.
Waka.
Yeah, I didn't really like her that much. Her or Waka. I liked pretty much everybody else in the game.
I didn't like Waka, but I think I just couldn't stand his accent. I was like, oh, you sound terrible.
Yeah. His personality doesn't bother me as much, but his accent was pretty.
The accent was pretty bad. I'll admit that.
And as I said, we already touched upon Auron's awesomeness.
We had Riku, the bubbly blonde engineer.
Gag. I hate bubbly
Auron,
characters.
Auron, so awesome they couldn't contain him in one game. They had to make the entire Kingdom Hearts series just so he could come back again.
Let's see. Kimari, the outcast.
Sad.
What is he? What is his race again? I forget.
Lion people.
It's not. I mean, yes, they're lion people, but like, there's an actual name for it. I don't remember what it is.
I'll find out.
Right now.
Lion people.
I'm looking it up right now.
Look, Simba, this is all your land. You rule all of this.
All the area the light touches, Simba.
Well, while you're there,
he is a Ronso.
Yes, the Ronso. That's what they are.
Well, and then we have our fun cast of characters, and then we have Seymour.
Yeah.
Blue-haired creepy fuck.
Yeah. The creep level was strong in this one.
Speaking of using way too much hair care product,
I'm not sure whether I like Seymour or not as a villain. I think it's kind of like in pro wrestling where if there's somebody you really, really, really hate, that means they're doing a good job. I really hate Seymour.
Well, I mean, they give him a nice, good Jewish name to start, and
well, I think probably the thing with Seymour was when you first see him, he's kind of sleazing up on Yuna, which you kind of like, hey, this is my white mage / summoner, don't touch her.
Yeah, it's like, no, yeah, and everyone who's playing Final Fantasy X, who's played Final Fantasy VII, are starting to get...
Oh, fuck you! Get the fuck away from her right now, you son of a bitch!
It's like everyone's getting horrible Final Fantasy VII flashbacks. Like, no, no, get off.
No, not Nerith.
Yeah. Bad get away.
But no, that didn't happen. You kill him, but he comes back for more. So I'm like, what the hell? Is he Nemesis?
Kind of.
And so you beat him a couple times, and then you get to his third form.
Yeah, that's the... I consider, like, in every Final Fantasy, there's the you hit the wall moment. Seymour fight number 3 is definitely the wall moment.
As opposed to the literal wall moment in Final Fantasy IV, where the wall was a boss battle. But
yeah.
Oh, that scene made me so sad.
Oh, But
Yeah.
but yes, hitting Seymour Fight 3, and you're absolutely right, Ron. I'm playing through the game, la 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 la, and then you get to that moment, and it's just like, nah.
And it's not even like there's a lead up to it, like there's a sudden increase in the enemy level. Like, you're fighting through the enemies as you're climbing the mountain, and you're still doing pretty decently. Sure, there may be a difficult fight or two, but that's just because of how the mountain is set up.
Yep.
I mean, it's a tall mountain, and the save points are few and far between. So, when you fight Seymour, you're like, okay, this is going to be a pretty challenging boss fight, but I should still be, oh shit, he just killed me at 3 hits. God damn it.
And then you're like, oh. And then you realize I need to have all of my Aeons in full overdrive for this one.
Yeah, you have all your hands in full overdrive, and then you use your overdrive, like, okay, now I can start, like, whittling away his HP a bit. Nope, kill it, son of a bitch.
Well, here's the thing. You said earlier, your Aeons are good for one hit. If
Yeah,
they're
you get your one hit, but, like, for me, like, when I first, like, I went to fight him the first time and died, I'm like, okay, well, shit. Now I'll go in with Yuna and, like, have the Aeons take a couple hits, and, like, while the others can dirl around in the background, like, the Aeon goes overdrive, and then I go, okay, now what? And then Seymour kills it, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess that worked, but not what I was hoping for.
Well, let's see. Okay, it's like, and basically how I did that battle was, okay, Aeon, uses the overdrive, then that Aeon would be killed. Okay, throw out the next Aeon. It became a battle. It became Pokemon. It's like,
Yeah, I was just gonna saying that. You're just gonna say that. Pokemon, Yuna, where are you?
It's like, Shiva, I choose you. Ifrit, and you just keep going and just hope that you don't lose all 6. Otherwise, you pass out, you faint, and you wake up at the nearest Aeon Center with a Nurse Joy hanging over you. But
I don't have enough money to pay Yojimbo.
yeah. So after that battle, we move along, and then there's Seymour number 4.
Isn't Seymour number 4 after the
battle with Seymour 4 is after the battle with Sin.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, like, I mean, Seymour 3...
Sin. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, like, I really enjoyed from Seymour 3 up to Sin Fight, I really enjoyed, like, that specific time of the game. Because you finally reached your destination of where you were trying to go. You have the plot twist, then you have the heroes decide on the new course of action, on what they're going to do, and then you have them reenact the plan and on how to deal with Sin.
Right, and by this time, Titus has already had his nookie, so...
Yeah. So you're like, okay, like, there's definitely a very strong character development, like, character scenes, a lot of plot progression. You feel like you're achieving something in the game. And then Seymour 4 shows up, and you're like, no, you son of a bitch, you're gonna stay dead this time.
I think the only way to let him stay dead is to have Oron eat his soul.
But finally you get past him, and you fight Sin's mouth, and you get inside Monstro, and it's Pinocchio. No. Then, you go through, and then you get to Jack. You finally get to Daddy! And...
Geppetto!
I know how he can win. Just smoke him out.
I'm a real boy now.
No, Titus fades away, thank God. Daddy! And... you beat the game, and the ending, you find out, oh, he's just a dream, and I'm like, wow, cop-out ending.
Well, they kind of hinted at that, shortly after Xanarkin, didn't they?
They hinted at it with Unalesca. She mentioned it.
Yeah, like, she mentioned, like, he's a dream, or something along the lines of, like, there's a chance that he'll... No, I know Arn specifically says it when Titus asks him, is like, am I a dream? And he kind of says yes. Am I going to fade away after Sin? I don't know. And Titus is like, okay, I guess I can live with that.
But, Yuna sobbing, but, everything is all saved.
And therefore they had to make 10-2 just for her.
10-2, yes. We'll briefly touch on 10-2. I don't know how many of us played it.
I
Really, I was
played it,
hoping that
I
would be
beat
that which cannot be named. I was really hoping for that.
10-2, yes.
I know a remarkable amount about it, considering I've never played the game.
It was released in 2003. It was the first game to have only 3 playable characters.
Yep.
And
Yuna, Riku, and Pain.
And an all-female cast to boot. And when I played this game, I'm like, whoa, when the hell did the game become J-pop?
Charlie's Angels, the RPG.
You see Charlie's Angels, I see Sailor Moon.
No, Sailor
That
Moon
would
is
be
10
5.
times cooler than that, okay?
There'd be 5 of them if it was Sailor Moon.
Well, so I don't start off with like 1, then 3, and then go to 5 right away.
Well, yes, but by the end of the first season. I've watched that recently, so thank you.
Yeah.
Still
But, like,
watching it myself.
Yeah, I mean, definitely
You watched
10. Okay, first off, 10-2 being an actual numbered sequel, that's a first for the series.
Yep.
That is true. Yes.
You had you had the how many years has it been since the end of 10? Like 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, so a lot of things happened in 2 years, which is
Religion sucks.
yeah, religion
I'm gonna sing and
sucks.
dance now.
Technology good.
Well, once you find out
Yuna
that
got
God is
pants.
trying to destroy the world.
You know, and the entire game, I felt, this doesn't feel like Final Fantasy. For one, it was broken up into episodic chapters.
Yeah.
But you did have a variation of the character class system in terms of the dress spheres and the garment grid.
Yeah.
That reminded me of Tech.
Yeah. Admittedly speaking, I think the dress sphere and garment grid was not a bad idea because you could change mid-battle.
Yes, you can change them on the fly in battle.
Yeah, which I feel is actually a really cool mechanic in a game like that because it was a return of the ATB.
Yep.
And changing classes on the fly in the middle of a battle to suit your needs is actually a pretty cool thing because you could have someone be white mage buffing and healing, and then after they're done buffing and healing, they can shift into gunner mode and start using trigger happy time.
Yep.
It kind of evolved into Final Fantasy 13 system.
Yeah.
A bit, yes. It was also one of the first, one of the few Final Fantasy games to have multiple endings, depending on how much of the game you completed.
Yeah. You have the quote unquote normal ending, and then you have the canon ending.
I think that might be the only Final Fantasy with multiple endings. I can't think of another one.
I can't.
Yeah.
5 has different tweaks on the ending, but it's still the same ending. 9 has a Easter egg ending.
I mean, 6 has, it's the same ending, but depending on which characters you have alive at the time. Like, Shadow's not there if he dies, or Mog too.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, it's the same ending.
Yeah. I mean, 9 has the Easter egg ending, like I said. 12 has the same ending. 13 has the same ending. Yeah, I think they all...
It's like Chrono Trigger makes up for all the Final Fantasies that don't have multiple endings.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger definitely makes up for all the Final Fantasies, but that's besides the point. Well, what are things do you guys remember about Final Fantasy X?
I'm curious. Could we call Final Fantasy X the Mass Effect 3 of its time?
The Mass Effect 3 of its time?
Based on how everyone was Spec 3 ended.
Well, based on the ending of Final Fantasy X, or the controversy surrounding 10-2?
I mean, that's where I'm drawing my Mass Effect 3 comparison from. Because, this happens in Mass Effect 3, the end, and you have the end of 10-2, where it's all just a dream.
I have Final Fantasy X-2 sitting in my DVD binder. I bought it shortly after it came out. I still haven't played it.
Yeah. Personally speaking, I think if you took 10-2 and didn't have it be tied to the Final Fantasy name, if you just had it be a game by itself, I think it actually would have been a pretty well-received game. But because of the... I mean, 10 was pretty well-received. I mean, people had some negative things about it, but for the most part, I remember being generally reviewed pretty well.
I think it was people wanted more of the same. Like, this isn't...
Yeah, I think people were expecting 10 to be something similar to how 10 was in terms of story and like character personalities and interactions, and we didn't really get all that. The battle system, I think, was probably the strongest suit of the system or the game, but I think people were expecting it to be one thing. And when they didn't get that, they felt kind of depressed and bummed about it.
Well, people get that way, I think, even about any Final Fantasy game, because there's always going to be changes from the last game that came out. There's always going to be some sort of deviation from the system, and there's always going to be someone who's up in arms about the fact that there's changes to it.
I mean, by this point in time, we should be used to change in Final Fantasy, but I think people are just... For some people, like the 7 through, like 7 onward people, they want it to be similar to 7 with the world system, maybe not the battle system, but like the story and the characters.
I think it was more, when people accept change from Final Fantasy to Final Fantasy numbered. So they expect 7 to be different from 8, 8 to be different from 9, 9 to be different from 10, but when you have a sequel to one of them, it isn't unreasonable to expect that sequel to be in the same vein. Because if they were going to do something, if they were going to do something completely different, why didn't they just make it a new game? Is what a lot of people think. That doesn't make 10 to a bad game in that sense, but yes, I know it makes them pop stars.
I'm back. So yes.
Before we get back to this. Before we get back to the serious discussion, Riku is adorable. That is all. Thank you.
Also, I gotta say, 10 had the most metal opening I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I mean, every other one was like orchestral opening or nice song or like a, some sort of like symphonic song. This one was just like chugga 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 chugga.
Well, this is also the first game in the series. Final Fantasy X was the first to be done by Uematsu plus others.
That would explain that.
It was a 3-composer panel for that game. In addition, 10-2 did not have anything done by Uematsu.
Which might explain that.
Which is why everything sounded so fucking J-poppy.
He is still credited on there because they used remixes of his songs, though.
Yes, they did. Okay, we move on to Final Fantasy XI, but before I delve into that, who among us has played it?
Here.
One.
Just me?
Yep.
One. Okay.
I played for a half hour.
Okay, so let me get the background out of the way, then you can talk about it. Final Fantasy XI was the first in the series to go completely online, something that I was not really thrilled about, because...
Amen to that one.
That meant I was never going to play it, and I felt that it should not have been considered a numbered entry. It should have been its own little thing. I know that
Final Fantasy Online, I could see that.
I mean, I know that Square was trying to hack into trying to piggyback onto Warcrack's success.
Actually, I think for Final Fantasy XI, this would have been EverQuest crack, not World of Warcraft crack just yet.
Warcrack wasn't out at that point?
Warcraft is not out for another 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I could have sworn 11 was 2003 and Warcraft is 2005.
When I started with playing Warcraft when it came out, I was one of the beta people, and
you were a fish?
My friends who played Final Fantasy XI were already a couple years into the game when that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regardless, Square wanted to get in on the MMO cash cow, and
wasn't even cash cow at the time. It was more of a cash dog.
Final Fantasy XI was released on PlayStation 2, Windows, and Xbox 360. It came out initially in Japan on the PS2 in May of 2002. Its first release in the States was on Windows in October 2003. Some highlights of the game was that it reintroduced the job class system similar to Final Fantasy III. Shockingly, or not so shockingly, depending on if you're, PC gamer or not, the game is still active and playable 10 years later.
Yeah, the community for Final Fantasy 11 is pretty small but very active.
Very active and very adamant about the game.
Yeah, I think there's still 100,000 subscribers roughly, which is about the minimum you need to keep a server running and still have it be financially stable.
Apparently, there's even an upcoming expansion coming out, and it is very likely going to be the last game for the PS2, as Sony has just announced that they are stopping production of the PS2.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you keep in mind too that when the Final Fantasy 11 was first launched, to play it, you had to buy the hard drive attachment and the network adapter for it.
Yep.
And the only thing that can use that now is an original PS2. The PS2 Slims cannot use the network adapter or the hard drive.
Didn't know that. And as a result, we have, because it's an online MMO, this is a paid service. It is a subscription-based pay-to-play. And as a result, despite it being online only, and probably not so much appealing to the hardcore Final Fantasy fans, I could be wrong, this has become the most profitable Final Fantasy game in the series.
Yeah, that's to be... Yeah. I think the subscription fee is like most MMOs, where the minimum is $15 a month, but you can get like a little discount if you buy multiple months at once.
So, Shanna, as you're the only one of us who has played the game at length, I give you the floor.
Well, it's been a long time though, so I might as well put that out there now.
That's still more than most of us.
I mean, for me, it was basically your general MMO. By the time I played it, I think WoW was already out. But I enjoyed it because it kind of gave you the opportunity to be in a Final Fantasy world without necessarily having that linear story and that linear set of characters. It was just a different way to experience a Final Fantasy game.
The sandbox feel.
The sandbox feel, exactly. And, I liked that not only did you have different classes, but you had different races. I preferred the Mithra race, which were cat women. Of course I did. Meow, Neckos. But, you also had elves. You had Tarus, which were basically like little, I guess they were like gnomes, if you want to compare them to, a general fantasy class. But yeah, I mean, it was fun at the time. I personally am also somebody who gets bored with MMOs rather quickly, so I'll play for a while and then I'll be like, oh, I have no direction, and then I'll stop playing. But as far as MMOs go, I mean, I had a lot more fun playing that, quite frankly, than playing like WoW or some of the other ones that are around.
So, it should be noted too that Final Fantasy 11 is a PvE game for the most part. Like, you are fighting enemies. There isn't a whole lot of player versus player interaction.
There's no PvP,
yeah.
I think they eventually added PvP, like arenas and things like that, but not in the initial launch, certainly not for a couple of years. Also, unlike most other MMOs where you could sort of get away with solo adventuring and leveling, after level 10 or so, the only way to really survive and get levels is if you partnered up with other people.
I was literally about to mention that because that is literally the exact reason I never played the game.
That was one of the reasons why I dropped off, because I'm a stubborn little loner when I play MMOs.
Yeah, I gotta agree on that one too. That's why I can't touch any MMOs or anything that require you to have, your multiple teams. Can't do that. I'm a loner. I'm used to my consoles where you're by yourself.
Well, I'm a huge MMO player. I played I baited World of Warcraft. I played it for years. I played City of Heroes, City of Villains. I could list a whole list of them. But the thing that completely turned me off to Final Fantasy XI, because I'd watched my friends play it for a year or two before WoW even came out, and the fact that it was so focused on group play, and that the only one I can think of that was more grindy than it that I'd seen was EverQuest itself. It was just too grindy and too focused on group play for me.
Yeah.
Like just about any other MMO, yes, they're multiplayer. You play with bunches of people, but in almost any other one, you can solo stuff yourself, and you can go through the entire game without grouping if you want. You might not go to a couple different areas, but you can make it through the game. You can't in 11.
Yeah. I think part of that is because of the nature of Japan. They are a lot more open with like how they party and interact. I think it's also partly because of how close they live together. I mean, look at how Nintendo handles their like a lot of their ad hoc options for the DS, and like that happens a ton.
Like street passes and
street passes and like you walk by someone with a DS and like you trade friend codes or something like that. Like that's gonna happen like 10 or 20 times in Tokyo, no problem. But
over here, it's not realistic.
Yeah, because of just how big the country is. Like
unless you're in school.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're in school, you're only going to be training with probably your immediate friends.
I can say this. I work in retail at Walmart. I have hundreds of people coming through our store every day, thousands of people. And I left my thing in Street Pass all day while I was at work a couple times. One person from an entire 8-hour day.
Yeah. Like, it's just a different culture here compared to where it is in Japan. And I think that's part of the reason why Final Fantasy XI didn't take off in the US as much as it did in Japan.
That makes sense.
There's still this much I'll give it. It was a beautiful and honestly a well-made and pretty balanced game. It wasn't my style, but I can completely understand why people loved it.
Oh yeah, I mean, for the time, like, this is 2003, 2002, like, the graphics for, like, then were really good, even for an MMO. And from what I've read of the game, in terms of the class balancing system, and skills, and classes, and even racial distribution, the races may give you a small bonus initially, but by the end game, it kind of all balances out to the normal MMO triad of DPS, tank, heal.
Well, there you go. I mean, I haven't played 11, so I know virtually nothing about it. And the same goes for 14, but we'll laugh at that later. For now, though, let us shift to Final Fantasy 12, which would be the last one in the numbered series for PlayStation 2. And this was another one that divided the fan base. This was released in Japan in March 2006. Came out on Halloween 2006 in the USA. The game takes place in the same world as Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yes. And I love that.
Just a different continent, so... Well, it's sort of a different continent. I mean... You are kind of brushing up against what the hell is the continent in
Invalus?
Tactics? Invalus, yeah.
Ivalice. However you pronounce it. Now this was the I don't know how much the case in the online in Final Fantasy XI, but at least in the console Final Fantasies, this eliminated random encounters. This game, enemies can now be seen on the map and can be avoided.
That was in 11 as well, like most MMOs, but that's definitely a first for the console single-player games.
Yeah.
just the fact that I think 12 was built partially due to the backlash on 10's linear progression.
As much as people want to forget about it, Mystic Quest had enemies you could see.
Yeah, that really wasn't Final Fantasy, though.
It had the title.
Yeah.
It had a title, but
Yeah, Final Fantasy 13 had the title, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
We'll get
I'm
there.
pretty sure I have a Game Boy cartridge on here that says Final Fantasy Adventure. You want to know what that actually is?
Yeah, I know what it is. I know what it is.
Yeah.
So the
But
rest of the
Mystic-
day, just because it has Final Fantasy on it does not mean it's a Final Fantasy type game.
Yes.
Okay, it was a core Final Fantasy title that was made as a Final Fantasy. It was not a Secret of Mana. It was not from any other series renamed. It was a Final Fantasy, whether it was terrible or not.
Yes. So, the battles take place in real time, which led to another naming of the battle system. We have what the official title is called the Active Dimension Battle System.
Where do they come up with these names?
I have no idea.
They have
But-
somebody with that job.
But
Yeah.
it's like a combination of the ATB and...
And a turn-based
It's a
system.
combination of the ATB, but the other thing with it is you can only control one character. Well, I mean, I should rephrase that.
Yeah.
You can control all three in terms of how you move them around, but you can only. But if you say, for example, I have Vaughn, Ash, and Balthier, I can move around Vaughn, but the AI is following around and will be will do commands based on how I set up the Gambit system, which is basically a pre-programmed AI or a programmable AI.
In some ways, it's similar to Kingdom Hearts. You have Sora who does everything, and then you have Donald and Goofy sort of just tagging along, picking up the rear end, and that's almost what Final Fantasy 12 does.
Almost, but here's the thing with Final Fantasy XII. Yes, you do have the Gambit system. Yes, you can pre-program commands into your characters, but you still had the option and the ability to fully manually control all your characters if you wanted to.
That's if you wanted to. You'd have to be insane to do it just because of the time investment into it.
Well,
it's much easier and much faster if you let the Gambit system do it.
Here's the thing. I use the Gambit system when just basic exploring of the world map, but during boss battles, I liked to assume control.
Right.
I kind of became the Harbinger from Mass Effect 2.
See,
Like,
I will handle this personally. Just assuming control. And
the system, the battle system in this, really, when I played this, I came off of playing Dragon Age, which had almost the exact same system of program. In fact, it was pretty much the exact same system.
Funny that, before you continue with that thought, funny little Snapple fact, Dragon Age was inspired by 12's battle system.
I'm not surprised. It's pretty much the exact same battle system. But
oh, good. That means I'm going to enjoy it. I haven't started it yet.
Yeah, I'd gotten into Dragon Age so much that when I played Final Fantasy 12, I already had that kind of battle system down pat. So I started getting into all the little minutiae and everything. I didn't have to play a single battle.
I mean, when you first start off, you only have 3 or 4 Gambit slots. So you can only program auto attack. If your HP goes below 30%, use a potion on yourself. But after a certain, as you get further along, you unlock more of the talent grid. Is it called in 12?
License system.
License
board.
License board, yeah. As you unlock more of the license board, you get more HP and MP and more skills, and you unlock more Gambit slots. You can make more and more complex things. And eventually you can get to the point where, I don't know if this happened for you, Brian, just because, you say you like to control in battles, but for walking around randomly, for random encounters, if I wanted to, I could just literally walk up to an enemy, hit attack, wait 5 seconds, and then the game would play itself.
Oh, that's what I did. Like I said, I used the Gambit system to its fullest, traveling the world map. But for major enemies and for boss battles, I said, okay, enough with the automatic bullshit. I'm going to step in here.
For me personally, I still use the Gambit system even during a boss battle. I just may tweak it during the initial setup of like, okay, I may change around different Gambits. I may turn on some and turn off others.
I mean, the only thing I did for boss battles using the Gambit system was primarily to indicate when a character should heal.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it fell below a certain percentage of their HP, let's automatically heal. But other than that, it was just, okay, I'm going all Harbinger on this thing. It's, you know... And I really liked it. And one of the things, you know, Final Fantasy XII, you know, among my group of friends, reaction is pretty mixed. I loved it. It is one of my favorite Final Fantasies in the series. And you know, a lot of people was like, no, it's nothing more than a single player WoW game.
See, I think I need to orient myself with a little bit, because I'll be honest, I got totally jarred by it the first time I saw a battle. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why are there beams coming out of everybody's head? I don't understand.
Yeah, that part can be confusing.
The beams coming out of everyone's head was to indicate the type of action.
Who was attacking who was healing who, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that was the determination with the color beams coming out of people's heads. Red was always an enemy.
Say, I will get right in alongside you, Brian. I love this game, possibly because I loved tactics and its story so much, and this was basically making a numbered system with a similar type of story, with a deep, complex story.
And also, like, the thing that made me love this game, two things. The first one was the story. Some people will argue that it really didn't have a story, but I felt the opposite. I felt that for the first time, this game, the plot of Final Fantasy XII, didn't hinge all around the main characters. I kind of felt that over the course of the game, that the story was going to progress regardless of what the characters did. I'm like, oh, okay, that means that your protagonists are not the center. It means that, you know, they're just a small part of the larger whole. Because if you remember, there are continents that are about to go to war with each other in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, I think the biggest complaint maybe that a lot of the haters had for, other than the fact that, you know, it's the game that quote-unquote plays itself, is, I guess if you got rid of Vaughn, if you find a way to get him off your party, the game was suddenly fine.
Yeah, and
I mean, I don't have a complaint with Vaughn myself, but
yeah, there is definitely some of the characters do have very much a lack of a really noticeable personality. Ash has a very noticeable personality. Balthier is a smarmy pirate.
Balthier is Han Solo in a fantasy world.
Yeah,
Balthier.
Awesomeness.
Balthier, oh my god, he was just he was kind of like the Dos Equis guy of the Final Fantasy world. He's like, I don't fly airships, but when I do.
Fran is basically a ninja pirate.
Yeah, Fran is Chewbacca.
Wait, is Fran the bunny woman?
Yes, Fran was the one with the bunny ears. Yes.
Okay. I just remember there being a bunny woman, and I was like,
finally,
okay, now I might need to play this.
And finally, Final Fantasy's progressed, where in multiple other games we basically have the girl next door, and in this game they finally actually have Penelo, the literal girl next door, the main character's childhood friend.
Yeah, she is literally the Vaughn's childhood friend and compatriot, and someone who tries to keep him out of trouble.
My favorite character. Who's surprised?
Not me. Not me at all. Also, one of the things I loved about 12, and this was something... We had side quests in previous games before, But this game totally took the idea of side quests and totally went apeshit with it. It was incredibly non-linear. I love the fact that once you got onto the world map and could explore, the game basically said, in order to advance the story, you have to go here. But we just want to let you know, you don't have to go here right away. You can do all this other shit in the meantime.
I never beat Final Fantasy 12 because I started doing side quests and I never stopped.
Like,
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
It's
I
like
stopped
Elder
enough-
Scrolls-esque.
Yeah. This is something that I think you guys should look up. There is a YouTube video floating around somewhere that has a level 99 Vaughn before you progress the story any further after you get out to the world map for
Yep.
the very first time.
I've actually seen that.
It's entirely possible. It's kind of like Skyrim, where you have there's so much openness. And, I mean, obviously not anywhere near as extensive as Skyrim, for God's sakes. Oh, God, no.
And plus no Fushora.
Yeah, you don't have any of that. But the fact that there was so much to do was, I think, really a welcome addition. It's like, holy shit, I don't have to go here right away. That's nice. And, you know, in some ways that was a pretty good thing, because it allowed you to level grind, it allowed you to get, you know, special items, it would allow you to get further on the license board. I mean, I really loved the hell out of this game. I mean, a couple of things that I didn't like about it was sometimes the save points were quite literally 2 hours apart.
Oh yeah, save points. This is where the thing goes. Every time you see a save point, save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is-
There's also the issue too with once you max out the license board, literally every character is a carbon copy of each other.
Pretty much. I mean, I almost did that, but it was getting to the point where enemies and even bosses were becoming a joke.
But
Yeah.
by the way, for anybody who hasn't played the game, Balthier is a secret character in the remake of Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yes, he is.
It doesn't surprise me. This was other useless trivia for Final Fantasy XII. This was the first Final Fantasy game to get that coveted 40 out of 40 from Famitsu magazine.
Which are notorious for never giving out that score to anything ever.
This was the first Final Fantasy game in the series to get that score. It was also the first PS2 game to get that score.
I think
First
they've only
PS2
given
game
out,
ever?
what, 15 or 20 total that they've ever given out?
I think 12 was the 7th perfect score they gave. I know the very first was Ocarina of Time because, well, it's Ocarina
of
Time.
Time.
High esteem.
Yes. Uematsu did write one song for the game.
The exit
Yeah.
song, and it's very noticeably Uematsu.
Yeah, you can tell. But it was, you know, overall I thought the score was pretty decent. There was definitely some homages to previous games, especially in some of the optional boss battles, like the optional Gilgamesh battle, complete with his music from Final Fantasy V.
Some of the optional boss battles in the game are really long and unnecessary. I mean, for fuck's sake, one of the hidden bosses has 12 million HP.
Again, the only advantage of finding these secret side bosses is that they make the final boss look like shit.
Well, and not to mention the fact that if you get the secret summon and you can defeat him, then he makes the last boss of the story look like shit.
Yeah, and even the final boss, Vayne, you know, as in terms of Final Fantasy villains, he was kind of lame. You didn't really get an attachment to him.
Yeah.
You know, he was not really. I mean, you knew he was the antagonist, but because
He was an asshole, but he wasn't a level of pure hatred and rage at him.
yeah, he appeared in some cutscenes, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know he's an asshole, you know he's a warmonger, he's a bad guy we gotta stop, but you don't have that emotional connection of rage and hatred to him that you just want to rip his eyeballs out and jam them down his throat.
Right.
I mean, I think I kind of felt more like that with one of the bosses, Judge Gabranth. But,
Yeah.
and also for the first time, well, maybe not the first time, our Sid character is a bad guy.
He's not... I wouldn't call him a bad guy per se, but he's definitely not a good guy.
Well, he is a boss.
No, that's 13.
Are you sure? I thought...
That's 13.
Isn't
So
Sid an
12
airship?
Yeah, no, in 12, Sid is a regent that is Ash's uncle, I want to say.
Oh, you definitely fight Sid in that.
You definitely fight Sid in 12. He's Balthier's dad.
Maybe
Now, is this the first time you ever fight a Sid in a Final Fantasy?
Let me double check.
Yeah, I want to make sure. 'Cause I could have sworn 13 Sid, you fight.
Well, let me make sure. Let me get Final Fantasy 12 Sid here. I'm almost positive. Well, I know in the story for a fact that Sid is Balthier's dad.
I just
Yeah.
looked up. You do fight Sid.
Okay. Because I'll admit it's been a while since I played Final Fantasy 12. Even though I spent 130 hours playing the game, once I beat it and was done with it, I just sat down and haven't touched it
You
since.
actually fight him twice.
Hmm.
You fight him in yeah.
You must fight him fairly early on because I know I know he's a bad guy, but after a certain point, he's not really your enemy, but he's not really your ally.
He's just there.
Yeah, he's there. He kind of helps you out, and then he kind of helps the other guys out. He's kind of playing both sides of the table.
So, it's very interesting for that, and
I'm curious about 12. Is this the first game where, again, they changed the summons? This time they're the espers. Is
Yep.
this the first time you ever, once you assign an esper to a character, it stays with that character? You can't change it or anything? Or was that done in a previous Final Fantasy as well?
You are correct in that thought. Once you assign an esper to a character, you cannot change it again. That is the first time that you've had a summon tied to a non-summoner class.
Well, that sucks.
I do remember that each one gets their own unique summon.
And it's,
I'd keep changing him around. It would screw me up so bad.
and then the summons are based off of the villains from Final Fantasy Tactics.
Right,
Yeah.
the way the original summons come in is through
They're
the
based
names of
off
the
the
air.
Zodiacs.
This game ended up spawning a sequel as well, Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings for the DS. I've not played this. I know nothing about it.
I have it. I've beaten it. It's a RTS, essentially. Only you move around Vaughn and Penello and a couple other guys. And you have, I think, it's been a while since I played it and beaten it, but I think you have to do something involving summons, the summons themselves. You have to, defeat because some guys are going to try and absorb them from what you have and then use them against the world.
Alrighty, so we are going to shift to the PlayStation 3.